one of my subscribers, Pauline, asked me to do a video showing how to turn a circle into something that looked like a cut gem. And once I'd thought about that for a little while, I suddenly realised this could turn out to be one of the best practical exercises in shading on engraved glass that I could ever make. So here goes. Pauline dropped me a comment asking if I could look at taking a circle on engraved glass and making it look like a cut, faceted gem. If you've seen a number of my videos, you'll know that quite often I will go out and I'll find whatever I'm trying to make an engraving of and take a photograph or draw it and work from real life. The problem with gems is that the facets and all the cutting on them is so complex that trying to replicate that from a real gem would just take forever. So to start with, I thought what I'll do is I'll draw out an example of a faceted gem. And it took me quite a while to do that. I went through quite a lot of practice paper before I was able to do something that I was happy with. But I have managed to make a drawing, and I will attach this onto the description of the video. It is just my drawing, so my layout lines and things are still there, but you can still use it if you want to. And honestly, I think this is the best practical exercise you will ever find. If you need to practice your shading on glass, this is the way to go. This drawing is the one I did first of all, showing the lines where I wanted the facets to be on the gem. And then I tried shading that in with a pencil and discovered that it was getting a bit complicated. But I worked out that I think I need 5 different tones to complete this shading. And if you do go and look at the picture, there's a colour-coded one at the bottom which shows where I think those tones need to go. So the first thing I have to do is copy these lines onto a piece of glass, and then I can head off into the workbench and work out how I'm going to make these tones on the glass. I've chosen to do this engraving on a piece of flat glass, a piece of float glass, which is useful because then I can just lay it down over the drawing and use a pen to mark the points, the intersections of all the lines. And I'm drawing in those lines now with a diamond scriber. So it looks like a pen, but it has a little industrial diamond at the tip, and that makes quite a nice fine line on the glass. This is quite a useful tool, but if you do decide to use it, do be careful. If you press too hard with these, they can make little chippy marks in the glass, which is not so nice, but a little light pressure leaves quite a nice fine clear line on the glass. And all I'm doing is going around and joining up the dots. Then I have to go around the outside, and since I don't have a pair of compasses, I have to just do that by hand, so I've laid it down over the drawing again to help me with that. That will just leave me with the final little points to put in, which again is just the ruler and the diamond scriber. And with that done, that's the whole pattern transferred onto the glass, and I can go and start filling in the tones. Now I've decided to do the second darkest tone first, and I will explain later why I've done that. For the second darkest tone, I'm using a white Arkansas stone, and it's quite a small stone, so I can work down into the points with it. And I've just gone around the outside and then filling in the middle of each section. And I'll repeat that for each part of the pattern which I think needs to be done in this tone. And I did mark the centre of each bit so that I could see which bits needed to be done. Otherwise it can get a little bit confusing. And I'm doing this a bit like an adult colouring book, I suppose, going around the outsides and then filling in the middles. With that second darkest tone done, I move on and do the third darkest tone. And I'm doing that with a diamond burr. This is a fairly small round diamond burr, and I have the water dripper going because I want this to be relatively smooth. But I'm using the same technique, going around the outsides and then filling in the middle. In this case, I'm filling in the middle with a slightly larger burr, and honestly, I'm only doing that to save me a little bit of time. The water helps to keep the engraving just a little bit smoother, but it also protects your burrs. It stops them getting hot and being damaged, and it obviously also keeps the amount of glass dust down, which is better for your lungs. You should always wear a mask, of course, but working wet does help as well. Now I had to move back to the smaller burr to do these little points in the middle because it was too difficult to get to the ends of them with the big one. Now we come to the reason why I did the second and third darkest tones first. Both of those need to be polished back, and I'm using a grey disc rubber to do that. But I'm also going over those areas where the darkest tone has to be with the same rubber. So it won't have been engraved, but it will have had the rubber polisher over it. And that will mean that it keeps a very, very dark tone without looking like I've just forgotten to engrave that bit. So just the rubber itself over the glass to give me the darkest tone that I can possibly get. Now on to the next tone. Again, I'm marking the centres of each one so that I don't get confused. This is a brown aluminium oxide stone, and you may not have that particular stone because I've only ever seen it for sale in one place, but the alternative would be to use a green stone. The only thing I would say is watch your green stones because they're not all of the same grit. Some of them are quite a fine grit, some of them are much coarser. But you should be able to use a green stone for this section, for this bit of the engraving. I'm just using this brown one. This long tapered one is quite good for getting these middle sections done, and I thought that I would use a different shape of the same stone to fill in the bigger areas, again to save myself some time, but it quickly became apparent that the bigger stone didn't produce the same tone in the glass that the smaller one had done. So I had a look at it and decided to change back to this tapered brown stone, and I think you can maybe see how much lighter that is using this stone than I got from the same stone in a different shape. And that's quite interesting because I hadn't realised before that the shape of the stone could affect the tone of the engraving, and it's something I'll have to watch out for in the future. However, I just continued on and filled in all those sections with that brown stone, which just leaves the very whitest areas still to be engraved, and you won't be surprised to know that I'm doing that with a diamond burr. A fairly small round diamond burr because these sections are all quite small and I have to be able to get into the points. You may notice there's no water dripper going for this stage. I want this to be as white as I can possibly get it to be. So working dry will help to give me the very whitest tone that I can manage. But the principle is just the same. Go over each section with the diamond, working my way down into the points round the outsides, and then filling it in. I say like it's just like doing a colouring book. They're supposed to be good for your nerves, so maybe this is a good way to get rid of stress. Once I had these all filled in, I stood back and had a look at it and decided that I could do with it being a little bit whiter. So I came back with this larger burr and went over some of these bits again, not it's not the size I was interested in, it's just a coarser burr. This exercise in shading took me almost 2 hours to finish. So it's quite a big time commitment to do it. But if you do try it, you will end the day with a far better understanding of the tones you get from your burrs than you start it with. You may end the day with less hair as well as you pull it out in frustration, but that's a different problem. If I was doing it again myself, I might try to find a different combination to get the middle tone. The colour, the tone of it is right, but I don't like the texturing on it. However, you learn every day when you try something, and this is a really good one to learn with. If there are any points to take from this, it is that not all burrs are the same. The green burrs I have are all quite different and all produce slightly different textures. The brown burr I used for one of these sections you may not be able to get. I just happen to have it. What's important is to understand your own burrs and to understand the texture you're getting from each one. And if you can do that, you'll be able to add as much shading into your engraving as you want to. I hope that you found that interesting, helpful. If you did, then please click the like or subscribe if you've not subscribed, and maybe I'll see you again on the next video. Thank you.